Wind tore through the skeletal oaks like a hungry thing, carrying fragments of syllables I couldn't place, whispers caught in the gale's teeth. Ashworth Gardens decayed around me, a cathedral of overgrown ferns and strangling ivy that clung to crumbling stone walls. My cane sank into the damp earth, releasing the smell of wet rot and ancient loam. I adjusted my spectacles, cataloguing the unnatural blooms, petals like bruised velvet, stems thick with a sickly phosphorescent moss. The silence between the wind's howls felt heavier, pregnant with something waiting. In the greenhouse ruins, rubble choked the floor, moss, thick and emerald, coated cracked tiles and the skeletal remains of glass panes. Then I saw it, the cat. Emaciated, its bones sharp beneath thin fur, moving with a brittle grace. It crouched before a moss-covered stone slab, claws rasping against the cold stone. Scritch, 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 a sound like dry bones dragged over slate. Each scrape etched a line into the damp moss, forming patterns that shimmered with a faint forgotten light. Forgotten languages sif, the thought slithered through my mind. The cat's movements traced words I'd never known, its tail flicking like a compass needle. A low-frequency vibration began in my molars, humming up through my feet from the stone floor, a subsonic thrum that made my teeth ache. I turned from the cat, seeking distraction in the greenhouse's deeper gloom. A tarnished mirror half buried in debris caught my eye. I approached, brushing dust from its tarnished silver frame. My reflection stared back, pale and wide-eyed. I raised my right hand slowly. The reflection lifted its hand but delayed. Half a second, then another half-second. The lag grew, the mirror's surface seeming to breathe as my hand moved, my heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic rhythm against the wind's sigh. The whispers intensified, weaving through the gale twin slow, so slow. I stumbled back, boot catching on broken glass. The mirror's reflection didn't stumble, it tilted its head, a slow, deliberate motion. My own neck felt stiff, frozen. Then, without me moving, the reflection's lips parted. A smile bloomed across its face, wide and unnatural, teeth gleaming in the dim light. The wind died for a single, suffocating breath. Shatter. The sound wasn't from the mirror. It came from the greenhouse ruins behind me, a sharp, crystalline crack, like porcelain breaking underfoot. The mirror's surface rippled, the reflection's smile now a fixed, mocking curve. The vibration in my bones surged, a physical wave. The whispers coalesced into a single, chilling word, famine, mine. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The shattering ceramic echoed again, closer this time, a sound like ice cracking in a frozen lake, as the reflection's smile widened further, stretching impossibly wide across the glass. The mirror surface is a blackened wound in the greenhouse, rot, its edges peeling like old scab. I trace my fingers along the cold frame, the metal biting into my skin. The delay persists. My left hand lifts, the reflection, as follows but half a second behind, as if dragged through tar. I record it in my diary, the nib scratching against paper, asterisk lag observed, 0.5 s reflection lags behind. Asterisk the wind howls outside, a chorus of whispers, Saceroseth threading through the gale like needles. I press my ear to the glass, and the whispers sharpen into Latin, asterisk tempora, mutata sunt, asterisk times have changed, or asterisk non est hic, asterisk he is not here. The cat doesn't glance up from its work, claws still rasping against the stone slab, etching symbols that shimmer like oil on water. The vibration in my teeth is worse now, a hum beneath the hum, vibrating up through my spine. I cup my hands around my mouth, breathe into them. My breath fogs, but the mirror doesn't. The reflection sighs are black pits, reflecting nothing. I lean closer, the cold seeping through my coat. The whispers coil tighter, asterisk venet ad t asterisk. It comes to you. My fingers tremble. I sketch the delay in my journal, but the lines blur, stretching like taffy, the reflection. As face elongating into something unnatural. The paper feels damp. I lick my thumb to smear the ink, and the taste of iron fills my mouth. A gust slams the greenhouse door shut. Boom. The glass panes shudder, and the shattering ceramic sound echoes again, closer this time like 1,000 fingers snapping. The reflectioness lips part. I recoil, but the delay is gone. The reflectioness hand, my hand, stretches toward me, fingers splaying. The glass is no longer glass. It's skin. I can see the blue veins beneath, the way it breathes, the way it pruddy funny once. The cat's tail flicks once, slow, deliberate, as if marking the moment in its own ledger of forgotten things. The vibration surges a physical force, and my teeth ache with it. The reflection, as fingers brush the glass, and the surface ripples like water. Asterisk mine, asterisk the wind whispers. The reflection's hand presses harder. The glass doesn't break. My breath fogs between us, but the reflection doesn't. T waiting. The cat's claws still scrape insistent, tracing another symbol, another door, another passage. The door creaks open behind me, but I don't. Turn. The reflection. Fingers curl, beckoning. The wind dies. The vibration stops. Only the shattering ceramic remains, a sound that wasn't there before, and the reflection smile, wide and hungry. As it pulls me into the glass, the taste of iron lingers, thick as the damp in my mouth, as I press my tongue against my teeth, still there a metallic ghost. The cat's claws had stilled when the reflection swallowed me whole, or so I thought. But now it's back, crouched atop the shattered mirror's edge, its ribs pressing against the glass like the bars of a cage. Its eyes, pale, unblinking, lock onto mine as it begins again. The slow, deliberate scrape of its claws against the stone slab, carving lines into the floor. I don't remember falling. The last thing I recall is the reflection's fingers pressing against the glass, the way it twin-put having where they hit the ground, the impact sending a jolt up my arms. The impact sending a jolt up my arms. The air smells of wet earth and something older, something like the inside of a coffin. The cat's tail flicks once, twice, each movement deliberate, marking time. The lines it's drawn on the floor are precise, intersecting arcs, like a map only it can read. My fingers trace one, and the wood beneath is loose, a hidden floorboard. The vibration starts in my bones again, a low, insistent hum, as if the earth itself is singing. I press my ear to the wood, but the only sound is my own breath, shallow and uneven. The cat watches, unmoving, as I pry the board free. The space beneath is dark, but the lantern still clutched in my coat flickers to life on its own, casting a sickly green glow. The air below is thick with dust, and the scent of damp stone rises like a corpse from a grave. I descend carefully, the vibration pulsing in my chest now, a physical weight. The tunnel slants downward, the walls slick with moisture. The cat slinks ahead, its claws clicking against the stone, each step a measured rhythm. The scraping grows louder, more insistent, as if the garden itself is guiding me. The lantern light flickers, and for a second, I see them figures darting between the columns, their forms shifting like smoke. My breath catches. I turn, but they're gone. Only the scraping remains. The cat pauses at an archway, its bones pressing against the stone like a shadow given form. The lines it's drawn lead here, converging at the entrance. I follow, the vibration now a roar in my skull. The archway is carved with symbols, the same ones the cat has been etching, twisting unreadable things that make my skin crawl. The scraping stops. Silence. Then, a sound, not the scraping, not the wind. A whisper, but deeper, older, like stones grinding together. The lantern flickers again, and for a heartbeat I see them. Shapes moving in the darkness, their edges blurred, their faces nothing but hollows. I reach out, but my fingers pass through them. They're not figures, they're shadows cast by the lantern's light, playing tricks on the edges of my sight. The cat's claws resume their work, scraping against the stone, faster now, as if in warning. The vibration surges, and I press my hands to my chest, but it doesn't ease. The archway looms before me, the symbols pulsing faintly, as if alive. The cat steps through, its tail held high, and the scraping stops. I follow, the lantern flickers one last time, and then the shadows move. The scraping ceases abruptly. A silence so complete it presses against my eardrums, a vacuum born of expectation. The archway. It's just an archway, carved stone, slick with moisture. The symbols, though, they writhe in the periphery, a dizzying dance I can't quite focus on. The cat, a skeletal silhouette, sits just beyond, its pale eyes reflecting the lantern's sickly green light. I feel the vibration less now, a dull thrumming instead of a roaring presence. Doubt, that familiar ache, settles in my gut. Perhaps I'm imagining it all. The lantern light catches something embedded in the wall, ceramic. Not just a piece, but shards, fragments jutting out like broken teeth. They're everywhere, fused into the stone, their surfaces glazed with a patina of age. A low fracas echoes, so faint I almost miss it, and a single shard dislodges, falling to the stone floor with a brittle fortink. The vibration intensifies, resonating through the ceramic, a chorus of fractured echoes. It's unsettling. A memory surfaces, hazy and fragmented, of a childhood vase shattered on the hearth. My mother's voice laced with disappointment. I reach for a particularly large fragment, its surface cool and smooth against my fingertips. It feels resonant, as if it holds a vibration of its own. The air thickens, heavy with the scent of damp earth and something else, something akin to burnt sugar. The scraping begins again, softer this time, a subtle rasp against the stone. Scrape, scrape, scrape. It's a counterpoint to the vibration, a discordant rhythm that grates on my nerves. I try to rationalize it. Limestone reacting to the humidity. Fault lines in the rock. Anything but. The ground shifts. A subtle tremor at first, a barely perceptible sway. Then, a more pronounced lurch. My feet slip on loose gravel, and I flail, reaching for purchase. The lantern swings wildly, casting grotesque shadows that dance across the walls. A deeper fufta crack echoes, louder this time, followed by a cascade of crumbling stone. The stairs, they're collapsing. Panic claws at my throat. I scramble backward, my ankle twisting beneath me with a sickening pop. A sharp, white pain shoots up my leg, and I cry out, a strangled gasp lost in the echoing darkness. I fall, landing hard against the damp stone wall. The air is knocked from my lungs, and for a moment, everything is a blur of pain and disorientation. The cat remains motionless, a silent observer of my misfortune. I push myself up, bracing against the wall, my injured ankle throbbing with a relentless pulse. The lantern lies on the ground, its light casting a fractured circle around me. The vibration returns, stronger now, a physical pressure against my chest. The scraping continues, a mocking accompaniment to my pain. Fitzwilliam. A voice whispers close to my ear. It's not a shout, not a demand, but a sigh, a mournful lament carried on the damp air. I whirl around, searching for the source, but there's nothing there. Just the cat, its pale eyes fixed on mine. The shadows deepen, pressing in on me, blurring the edges of the tunnel. The ceramic shards seem to glow with an inner light, their surfaces reflecting the lantern's diminished glow. The vibration intensifies, a physical weight pressing down on me, stealing my breath. My vision swims, the tunnel walls seeming to warp and distort. I blink, trying to clear my head, but the disorientation persists. The whispering returns, a chorus of voices murmuring my name, each syllable laced with a sorrow I can't comprehend. The lantern's flame sputters, shrinks, and then dies, plunging the tunnel into near darkness. The scraping continues, relentless and unwavering. The vibration pulses, a physical echo of the fear that grips my heart. I can hear my own ragged breathing, a desperate counterpoint to the rhythmic rasp of the cat's claws against the stone. I am alone, utterly, irrevocably alone. The scraping continues. The pain in my ankle is a dull, persistent throb, a counterpoint to the frantic hammering of my pulse. I brace myself against the cold stone, the dampness seeping into my clothes. The lantern's absence leaves a void, a suffocating darkness that presses in on me. I need to write, to record, to anchor myself. The diary feels rough beneath my trembling fingers, the leather cover cool against my skin. The wind. It's a constant presence now, a howling lament that snakes through the ventilation shafts, vibrating through the very stone beneath me. Hoo. It's not just wind, though. There's something else woven into its howl, a cadence, a rhythm. It seems to sync with my heartbeat, a morbid metronome marking the passage of time. Thump, hoo, thump, hoo. Phrases form within the wind's moan, fleeting and indistinct, but undeniably there, a language I don't recognize yet feel I should. I fumble for the diary, the pages rustling like dry leaves in the wind's breath. The last entry. It's different. The script. It is the same script the cat seems to consume with its gaze, a swirling, intricate pattern of lines and curves that defies any language I've ever encountered. I stare at it, my vision blurring with a sudden wave of dizziness. How? I don't remember writing this. My hand shakes as I turn the page, a growing sense of unease tightening its grip on my chest. The vibration intensifies, a low hum that resonates deep within my bones. The stone floor beneath me feels unstable, as if it might shift, might give way. I grip the diary tighter, my knuckles white. I scan the pages, a growing dread settling in my stomach. Entry after entry written in that same alien script. Dates I don't recall, observations I haven't made. It's as if another person has been inhabiting my life, meticulously documenting a reality I'm only now discovering. A reality that feels increasingly unreal. I glance up, instinctively searching for the cat. It sits motionless in the doorway, a skeletal silhouette framed against the deeper darkness. Its eyes, twin pools of pale luminescence, reflect the last dying ember of the lantern's glow. They seem to bore into me, to pierce through the veil of my sanity. A low ficklick echoes from the ventilation shaft, a rhythmic pulse that mirrors the vibration in my bones. Ficklick thump, click, thump, thump. The wind whispers again, the phrases coalescing into something almost intelligible. A name, my name. Rhys. Rhys. It's not a malicious whisper, but a mournful lament, a sigh of regret carried on the wind's breath. I press my fingers to my temples, trying to block out the noise, the voices, the growing sense of disorientation. The script in the diary seems to shimmer, to writhe before my eyes. I reach for the pen, intending to write something, anything, to assert my control over this narrative, to prove to myself that I am still me. But as the pen touches the page, a jolt of something alien surges through my hand. My grip tightens and the pen begins to move of its own accord. I watch in horror as the familiar loops and curves of my handwriting transform, twisting into the intricate patterns of the alien script. The words flow effortlessly from the pen, forming sentences I don't understand yet somehow. Now, the cat's eyes gleam in the darkness, reflecting the final flickering ember of the lantern. The vibration reaches a crescendo, a physical pressure against my chest. The wind howls, a mournful symphony of loss and despair. The script continues to flow, filling the page with its alien beauty. I try to stop it, to wrest back control, but my hand is no longer my own. The last ember of the lantern dies. The script continues. The script continues, a relentless tide of glyphs flowing from the pen. I try to pull away, to clench my fist around the instrument, but it is as if my arm is no longer mine. The pressure in my chest intensifies, a crushing weight that steals my breath. Click, thump, click, thump. The ventilation shaft groans, a mournful sigh that seems to emanate from the very stone itself. The cat watches, its luminous eyes unwavering, a silent judge of my descent. Then it coalesces, not a form, not precisely, but a fubrescency, a shimmering distortion in the air, a confluence of fractured echoes. It's composed of whispers, of rustling leaves, of the distant drip of water tointer, all the lost sounds of the garden somehow woven together into a single unsettling entity. The scraping begins, a rhythmic rasp against the stone floor that intensifies with each passing moment. Scritch, scritch, scritch. It's not random, it's deliberate, purposeful. The being doesn't speak in words I can understand, but the sounds it emits resonate within my skull, forming a sense of urgency, of direction. It gestures not with limbs, but with the shifting patterns of its sonic composition, urging me forward. A path. It's showing me a path. My legs move of their own accord, drawn by an invisible force. The pain in my ankle is forgotten, subsumed by a compulsion I cannot resist. The scraping grows louder, more insistent, as I follow the being deeper into the labyrinthine corridors. Scritch, 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 scritch. Each scrape is a pulse, a vibration that rattles my teeth. The air grows thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying blossoms, a cloying sweetness that threatens to overwhelm me. I stumble, catching myself on a cold, moss-covered wall. The texture is unsettling, like the skin of some forgotten creature. Ahead, a chamber opens, revealing a sight that steals the air from my lungs. Walls lined with shelves, and on those shelves, rows upon rows of ceramic vases. Each one intricately painted with scenes of the garden, vibrant blooms, winding paths, and figures I don't recognize. They seem to hum with a faint, inner light. The being pauses at the threshold, its sonic presence almost palpable. The scraping ceases, replaced by a low, resonant hum. I reach out, drawn to one of the vases. It's cool to the touch, the glaze smooth and flawless. As I examine it, a tremor runs through the chamber. A feeling of immense pressure builds. A tightening in my chest. The air crackles with static, and then it happens, a simultaneous shattering, a cascade of ceramic fragments exploding outwards, a deafening chorus of destruction. Crash, crash. The sound wave slams into me, vibrating my bones, throwing me to my knees. The being flickers, its form dissolving into the fractured echoes from which it was born. The scraping stops, the whispers fade, the pressure releases. Silence descends, broken only by the ringing in my ears. I look up, blinking against the dust motes dancing in the faint light. The cat sits patiently in the doorway, its eyes gleaming in the gloom. It has drawn something on the floor with its paw, see, a circle of dust and grime. The ceramic shards reassemble, defying gravity, defying logic. They swirl and coalesce, slowly, meticulously, until they form a perfect circle on the floor, tracing the cat's path. The pattern is undeniable, a map etched in fragments of shattered beauty. My breath hitches in my throat. The script in the diary. It's all connected. The cat. It's not just a cat, it's a cartographer, a guide, and I, it seems, am its charge. The doctor's office smelled of antiseptic and quiet desperation. A stale, metallic tang clung to the air, a scent I associated with failure. He was a small man, Dr. Albright, with perpetually worried eyes and hands that trembled slightly as he reviewed my charts. "Rhys," he began, his voice a low murmur against the incessant ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. "Your symptoms are unusual, a clinical euphemism for baffling, for concerning, for potentially irreversible." The diagnosis felt less like a revelation and more like a confirmation of what I already suspected, that I was unraveling. Neurological degeneration. A rare condition triggered, he believed, by prolonged exposure to certain botanical compounds, hallucinogenic plants, the garden. It all clicked into place with a sickening finality. The whispers, the shadows, the things in. They weren't spectral visitations. They were the product of a mind slowly losing its grip. He slid a worn, leather-bound journal across the desk. "This was left anonymously at the clinic a few weeks ago. It details similar experiences, similar symptoms, all linked to the garden. It may offer some insight." The paper felt brittle beneath my fingers, the ink faded and spidery. The script within was unsettlingly familiar. The same glyphs I'd been compelled to transcribe. The same forgotten language that seemed to writhe just beyond the reach of my comprehension. Each page depicted the garden's flora with meticulous detail, but interspersed with warnings, frantic pleas scrawled in the margins. One to beware the bloom. Scent steals reason. One do not trust the shadows. A chill traced its way down my spine, a coldness that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. Thump, 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 thunk, thump, thump. The grandfather clock's pendulum seemed to mock my unraveling. As I left the clinic, the wind clawed at my coat, a relentless, mournful howl. The streetlights flickered, casting long, distorted shadows that danced with an unsettling familiarity. And then I saw it. Across the street, perched on a wrought iron fence, was the cat. The same emaciated creature with the luminous eyes that had become a silent, omnipresent observer in my descent. It watched me, unblinking, as if assessing the validity of my diagnosis. A tremor ran through my hands. It couldn't be. It was just a cat, a stray, a figment of my increasingly unreliable mind. Then, the whisper, a single, clear syllable carried on the wind, sharp and distinct amidst the gusts. "Begone." It resonated within my skull, a physical vibration that tightened my chest. Where the wind seemed to intensify, swirling leaves around my feet like a spectral dance. I strained to see who had spoken, but the street was deserted. The whisper felt directed, targeted. I started to cross the street, drawn towards the cat, compelled to confront the unsettling familiarity of its gaze. But as I neared, it vanished, simply disappeared, swallowed by the deepening shadows. I stopped, my breath catching in my throat. A sudden, sharp sea crack echoed from the storefront behind me. I turned. The window reflected my own image, but something was wrong. Terribly wrong. The wrist staring back wasn't quite in sync, a fraction of a second delayed, a subtle, unsettling lag between my movement and his. His lips didn't quite mirror my expression. His eyes held a flicker of something else, a hollowness that mirrored the emptiness I felt growing within myself. Click, thump, click, thump, thump, thump. The delayed reflection blinked a fraction of a second after I did. A wave of nausea washed over me. The glass felt cold against my skin. The wind continued to howl, a mournful dirge for a sanity slipping away. The garden swallowed me whole before I'd taken 3 steps beyond the gate. The iron bars groaned under the weight of my hesitation, their rusted teeth scraping against my palm like a warning. No rhythmic scraping here, just the suffocating quiet of a place holding its breath. The air was thick, syrupy, pressing against my lungs until I wondered if I'd forgotten how to inhale. My fingers trembled as I traced the jagged edges of the wound on my wrist. The blood had dried to a dark crust, but the faintest glimmer of crimson still bled through the cracks in my skin. A map. The cat had left me a map in my own blood. Or had I? The thought clawed at my ribs. The path was there, if you knew how to look. A serpentine trail of dark smears winding between the overgrown roses, their thorns curled like skeletal fingers. The vines here pulsed with an eerie luminescence, their veins throbbing with a sickly green light that cast my shadow in jagged, flickering segments. I pressed my ear to the bark of an ancient oak, but the wood offered no secrets, only the damp, rotten whisper of decay. The silence was worse than the wind. It pressed in, a physical force, and I could feel the bones in my skull vibrating with it, a low, insistent frynthrum that resonated through my teeth. The door was hidden behind a curtain of vines so dense they looked woven from shadow. I reached out, my fingers brushing against the petals of some unnatural bloom petals that parted like lips as I touched them. A cool draft spilled out, carrying the scent of damp earth, and something older, some wrong. The door swung open without a sound, as if hinges had been melted away by time itself. Beyond it lay a chamber, or what might have once been a chamber. The walls were lined with shattered porcelain plates, teacups, a child's rattle, all reduced to jagged shards that glinted under the dim spectral light. The air hummed, vibrating through my ribs like the plucked string of some unseen instrument. The cat sat at the threshold, its emaciated frame a silhouette against the glow. Its eyes, those hollow luminous pits, locked onto mine, unblinking. The silence shattered then, a sudden violent crack, as ceramic exploded somewhere deep within the chamber. The sound ricocheted off the walls, a symphony of splintering, each shard singing as it fell. My breath hitched. The cat didn't flinch. It watched. Waiting, I stepped forward, my boots sinking into something soft petals, perhaps, or the remnants of something long dead. The vibration in my bones intensified, a rhythm now, a pulse that matched the slow, deliberate scrape of claws against stone. The cat turned, its tail lashing like a whip, and padded inside. The light dimmed behind it, as if the chamber itself were breathing in. I followed, my pulse hammering in my throat. The floor was slick with moisture, and when I knelt to touch the paw prints left behind, my fingers traced the edges of a script glyphs that writhed like living things beneath my touch. Forgotten. Always forgotten. The shattering came again, closer this time, a chorus of breaking porcelain rising from the darkness ahead. The cat's tail flickered, a final warning. I swallowed hard, the taste of copper flooding my mouth. The glyphs burned against my skin. The silence pressed in once more, thick and suffocating, as the chamber seemed to hold its breath, waiting for me to understand, to remember. To sigh begone, the petals felt slick beneath my palms, a morbid offering. I arranged the night-blooming jasmine and the belladonna around the glyphs, mimicking the patterns the cat had traced. A ritual, that is what it had to be. Some desperate attempt to claw back a sliver of understanding from this place, the map in my blood, the cat's silent guidance. It all pointed to a purpose, a key, a way to unlock the garden's secrets. My voice felt brittle as I began the chant. The words were alien, scraped from the memory of the glyphs burning against my skin. They weren't twimmy words, not truly. They resonated from somewhere older, somewhere deeper, a language that tasted of dust and regret. Cage no ko, yami no michi. Shadow's voice, path of darkness. The syllables twisted on my tongue, each one a tiny fracture in the silence. The air thickened, pressing against my eardrums until I felt they might burst. It wasn't just the syrupy weight I'd felt before. This was something else entirely, a tangible density of sound. A low hum began, vibrating not just in my bones, but in the very marrow of my being. My teeth ached, a dull, persistent throb that escalated into a searing pain. The lantern clutched in my hand pulsed with a sickly yellow light, barely illuminating the circle of plants. The green luminescence of the vines intensified, throbbing in sync with the vibration. They seemed to reach out, tendrils of light probing, assessing. My vision blurred, the edges of the chamber dissolving into a swirling vortex of emerald and shadow. I stumbled, catching myself on the cold, damp wall. The glyphs seemed to writhe beneath my touch, their forms shifting, mocking. A trance. That is what it felt like. A descent. The chanting continued, a mechanical repetition of syllables I no longer understood. My body moved independently, a puppet dancing to a tune I couldn't hear. The whispers began then. A cacophony of voices rising from the darkness, coalescing into a single, unified roar. They weren't distinct words, but a tidal wave of sound threatening to drown me. Begone, remember, forget then. Then, a voice, familiar, yet utterly alien. It resonated within my skull, bypassing my ears entirely. You are the delusion. It was the cat's voice, distorted, amplified, imbued with a chilling, inhuman quality. The words reverberated through the chamber, shattering the fragile illusion of control. My breath hitched. I tried to stop the chanting, but my throat was constricted, my vocal cords paralyzed. The lantern flickered violently, its light dancing across the walls, casting elongated, grotesque shadows that mimicked my movements. I watched, horrified, as my own form contorted and twisted, a grotesque parody of a man. The shadows stretched, elongated, mocking my attempts to regain control. My hands trembled, the lantern slipping from my grasp. The vibration peaked, a deafening crescendo that threatened to shatter my sanity. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for the inevitable collapse. My knees buckled. I fell, the scent of damp earth and decay filling my nostrils. The whispers intensified, a chorus of mocking laughter echoing in my ears then. A sudden, absolute silence, broken only by the sharp, brittle sound of shattering ceramic. The lantern had fallen, its fragile glass exploding into a million glittering shards. Darkness, complete, utter darkness, pressing in from all sides, swallowing the last vestiges of light and hope. The sound of shattering ceramic returned, louder this time, closer, and then, nothing. The cold seeped through my palms where I lay sprawled on the bare floorboards. Not the damp earth of the garden, but the dry, dusty chill of the cottage. My head throbbed, a dull counterpoint to the persistent scrape, scrape, scrape outside the window. A sound like bone on stone, rhythmic, relentless. I pushed myself up, the movement sending a fresh wave of nausea through my gut. The air smelled of crushed herbs, damp paper, and something metallic like old blood. My diary lay open on the floor beside me, its pages filled with my own hand, but the script was clear, precise, chillingly rational. Neurological condition. Temporal lobe epilepsy. Visual hallucinations triggered by stress and isolation. The words blurred, then sharpened. I'd been writing this for weeks. The ritual, the cat's guidance, the glyphs, they were all the same as the mirror's slow, mocking delay. The garden wasn't haunted. I was. The realization was a cold stone in my throat. I stumbled toward the window, my knees weak. The lantern shards from last night were scattered like broken teeth across the floor, catching the faint, sickly green glow of the luminescent fungi clinging to the cottage walls. They pulsed softly, casting long, dancing shadows that made the room feel less like a cottage and more like a cave outside. The wind screamed through the skeletal trees, carrying the frothy scrape, 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 scrape. With it, a sound that seemed to sync with the frantic hammering of my own heart. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Each note a tiny fracture in the fragile calm I'd built. The mirror lay shattered on the stone patio below, its jagged edges reflecting the bruised twilight sky. My own reflection, fractured and distorted, stared back at me from the glass, 100 broken pieces of a man who didn't exist. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass, the chill a brief relief. The scrape, scrape, scrape grew louder, closer. It wasn't just the wind. It was coming from the greenhouse roof. I turned, my breath catching. There it was, the emaciated cat perched like a shadow on the ridge of the greenhouse, silhouetted against the setting sun. Its ribs were stark against its skin, its head tilted. It was looking directly at me. My own reflection, visible in the broken mirror shards, shifted its head slightly. Scrape, 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 scrape. The scrape. The sound echoed the movement. The cat's head turned, slow and deliberate, mirroring my own motion with a fraction of a second's delay. A delay I'd known since the mirror first showed it. The wind carried the sound of the scraping, now layered with a faint, distorted whisper that might have been my own name. Rhys. Rhys. The green glow from the fungi deepened, casting the cat's silhouette in an unnatural emerald hue. Its tail twitched. I raised my hand slowly, deliberately. The cat's tail twitched. A second later, its head turned further. I lowered my hand. The cat's head followed. A slow, jerky movement. Scrape, scrape, scrape. The sound was inside my skull now, vibrating in my molars. The reflection in the shattered glass, the cat on the roof, my own hand all moving with that same awful, impossible lag. The wind howled, carrying the scraping sound into the cottage, filling the space where the lantern's light had been. The fungi pulsed brighter, bathing the room in their cold, green light, making the cat's silhouette on the roof seem to shift to Fidicum. The reflection in the mirror. The delay was no longer just in the reflection. It was in the sound. It was in the air. It was in the way the cat's head turned just after I turned mine. The scrape, scrape, scrape stopped. The wind died. The only sound was the frantic hollow drumming of my own heart and the perfect, terrible echo of my own movement. Coming from the roof, the cat's silhouette shifted, mimicking Rhys's reflection, now with a visible delay.